And so here we are, gathered in virtual space, a virtual sacred space. This virus has managed to do what I don't think we have done as our people for generations, and that is for all of us to be home on Shabbat. In Chassidut and Hasidism, they say that if all the Jewish people observed Sabbath on the same day, then the Messiah will come. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm willing to try. And I imagine for many of us, this is
And so here we are,
we desperately need.
gathered in virtual
Sabbath
space,
of rest and
virtual
connection.
space.
Many of us are with our
This
family,
virus
but
has
not our
managed to
extended
do
family,
what
and some of
I
us
don't think we
are
have
separated
done as our
not
people
only
for
by
generations.
cities and homes, but
And
even
that is
by
for all
borders
of us to be home on
countries.
Shabbat.
But we're all together
Chassidut
through this
and
incredible
Hasidism,
technology.
They say that if all
And
the
so
Jewish
while
people
it
observed
is not
Sabbath on the same
the
day,
same as being
then
together in our
Messiah will
synagogue,
come.
there is still something
I don't know if
holy
that's
about
true
it.
or not, but I'm willing to
Somehow
try.
this virus has
I
managed to put
imagine for
Judaism
many of
into
us,
the
this
clouds.
is
And
a
so here we
Sabbath
are,
that we
which is
desperately
where
need.
Hashemayim, where the
Virtual
heavens
space
are,
and
and
where
our
connection
prayers can
space.
begin. Many of us are with
hopefully
our
never
family,
virus
but
has
not our
managed to
extended
do
family. So with the
what
strength
some
of our
us
community
are
and our
separated
ability to come
not
together
only
in
by
prayer
cities
and
and
song,
homes, but
we
even
will make
by
the
borders
best of what we
to be
have
home
as our
on
people have
Shabbat.
done throughout generations.
But we're all together
Chassidut
through
and
this
sing in our own
incredible
homes, but
say
sing
that
together in our
and
hearts.
so
as we
while
love
it
our
is
Shabbat
not on the same
here
same as
in
being
this
together
virtual
in our synagogue,
sacred space.
there is still something
We'll
holy
continue,
about
and
it.
I'll put up the pages on
Somehow
the
this
screen as we
virus
go.
has managed
We'll
to
continue
put Judaism
with
into the clouds.
Psalm
So here
29,
we are,
Mizmor
which is
David,
where Hashemayim, where the heavens
of
are,
rest
and where
and
our
connection
prayers can
space.
begin.
Many of us are with
Hopefully
our
never
family,
virus
but
has
not our
managed to
extended.
do
So with the
what
strength
some
of our
us
community
are
and our
separated
ability to come
not
together
only
in
by
prayer and
cities
song,
and homes, but
we'll make the best of what we have as our people have done throughout generations.
we're all together through
We'll
this
sing in our
incredible
own
space.
homes, but sing together in our
And
hearts.
so
as we
while
love
it
our
is
Shabbat
not on the
here
same as
in
being
this
together in
virtual
our synagogue,
sacred space.
there is still something
We'll continue, and I'll put up the pages on the screen as we go. We'll continue with Psalm 29, Mizmor,
which is where Hashemayim, where the heavens are, and where our prayers can begin.
Many of us are with
Hopefully
our
never
family,
virus.
but not our extended.
So with the strength of
our
our
community
community
and our
separated
ability to come
not
together
only
in
by
prayer and
cities
song,
and homes,
we'll make the best of what we have as our people have done throughout generations.
we're all together through
We'll
this
sing in our own homes, but sing together in our
so
hearts.
while it is not
Here
the same as being
in this
together in
virtual
our synagogue,
sacred space.
there is still
And so here we are, gathered in virtual space, a virtual sacred space. This virus has managed to do what I don't think we have done as our people for generations, and that is for all of us to be home on Shabbat. In Chassidut and Hasidism, they say that if all the Jewish people observe Sabbath on the same day, then the Messiah will come. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm willing to try. And I imagine for many of us, this is a Sabbath that we desperately need. A Sabbath of rest and of connection. Many of us are with our family, but not our extended family. And some of us are separated not only by cities and homes, but even by borders and countries. But we're all together through this incredible technology. And so while it is not the same as being together in our synagogue, there is still something holy about it. Somehow this virus has managed to put Judaism into the clouds, which is where Hashemayim, where the heavens are, and where our prayers can begin and hopefully never end. And so with the strength of our community and our ability to come together in prayer and in song, we'll make the best of what we have, as our people have done throughout generations. We'll sing in our own homes, but sing together in our hearts as we welcome Shabbat here in this virtual sacred space. We'll continue, and I'll put up the pages on the screen as we go. We'll continue with Psalm 29, Mizmor David. If you're following along, if you have a Siddur, it's on page 136. Wait, Annette, sorry, stop for a second, sorry. I've got something wrong with the video here. Hang on a sec. Sorry, we're gonna get this. Just give me a minute. Stop share. Unpin video. Okay. Okay, we'll try this again. Mizmor David. We'll continue Lachadodi, page 138, as we welcome the Sabbath bride.
Adonai echad u'shmo echad v'shemo tiferet v'lihila v'chatoti likrat kalai yadadai 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 v'nei Shabbat v'kavelai yadai yadai v'chatoti likrat kalai yadadai 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 v'nei Shabbat v'kavelai yadai yadai לקראת שבת מכוונך כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם מסופה סוף מעשה למחשבה תחילה לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה ומיתי מתוך הפכה רב לך בעמק הפכה והוא יחמור עלייך נגלה וחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי וחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי first light התעוררי התעוררי תברך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי לכבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי please rise בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלב לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי ידעי לחדותי לקראת כלה ידעי 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 בני שבת וגם אליי.
We'll continue now with Psalm 92, Magadlu. We praise God, hallelujah, with all of our voices, with all of our breaths. Page 140 here in the middle of the page. At this moment in our service, we come to Chatzi Kaddish, a moment of sanctification. Kaddish means to make holy. This week's Torah portion by Achel begins with not the description of the building of the tabernacle like the week before, although that is the main focus of the parsha, but rather it begins with the description of Shabbos, of the Sabbath. And it occurs to me then that there are really two palaces, two sanctuaries that are being created. The sanctuary of space, which is the Mishkan, the tabernacle, even the synagogue of today, and the sanctuary of time, as Rabbi Heschel called it, this ethereal holy place. We are not in our sanctuary of space, but we have created a sanctuary of time. All of us in our homes recognize the sanctity of time. Time with family, the lengthening of our days because our children are home, the time that it takes to get the simplest of things done because of technology, the time that we have to make phone calls to express our love and our thoughts with our loved ones who might be far away. And so as we enter into Chatzi Kaddish, as we sanctify this moment, we sanctify not a space, we sanctify the sanctuary of time, the holiness of this moment, to be with these people, spread across the internet, across the states and provinces and territories and country, but always together and connected through this holiness of this moment, the sanctuary of time. We continue Chatzi Kaddish.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דרכו בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילא מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמא, ואמרו Amen.
And those that are standing at home will remain standing for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai, HaMevorach, turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Boreum, Delilah, Bolelo mipnei Choshev, Bolelo mipnei Choshev, Choshev mipnei Or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Boreum, Delilah, Bolelo mipnei Choshev, Bolelo mipnei Choshev. Choshev mipnei Or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night.
I can take a moment for us to pause just a moment before we recite Shema together. One of the challenges of this virus is this idea of isolation, of social isolation, that we are alone. Our tradition does not generally celebrate the idea of aloneness. In fact, Judaism celebrates community so much. That's why we have minyan. But there are moments when our people have been alone. We can think of Jacob wrestling with the angel alone. Moses going up the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments alone. We can think also of this proclamation of faith, the Shema. Another way to translate the word echad, which we understand as one, is we can also understand that word to be alone. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God. Adonai is alone. Just as we might feel alone in this moment, but still have the presence and the feeling of our faith and of God with us, so is God never alone as long as God has our prayers and our focus and our attention. And so there is to be alone, but there does not necessarily need to be loneliness. And that, I think, is something that we are all learning at this time. Though we are alone, I hope in this moment and in the moments to come, none of us feel lonely. And so we take a moment to meditate on the sanctity of being alone, the holiness of being alone and not being or feeling lonely in that time. We'll continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lebavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Amen.
We continue with Micha Mocha, page 158, A Song of Miracles.
Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary to you. Micha Mocha, Bailim Adonai, Mi kamocha, nedar b'kodesh nora, tehilot oseh peleh. Mi kamocha, bailim Adonai, Mi kamocha, nedar b'kodesh nora, tehilot oseh peleh. Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary to you. Ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la.
Hashkivenu is a song, a prayer that is said at bedtime. From the time children are young, they say Shema al Mitah, the bedtime Shema, and within it are the words that are not only for children, but for all of us, that as we lay our heads down at night, that we might wake up to a life restored and renewed, not only for children, but for all. God, defend us against enemies and illness and war and famine and sorrow and viruses. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and our coming to life and to peace evermore. Amen. We'll join Hashkivenu, page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, ושלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. Amen. 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 Amen.
We continue as we sing a song of rejoicing and celebration, Yismechu, the middle of page 162. The Amidah begins with the words Adonai Sefatai Tiftachu Fi Yagid Tehilatecha, asking God to help us find the words that we might speak with God in prayer. It is, as I've said, I think before, one of the most powerful prayers in the Siddur, because it is a prayer for prayer. When we don't have the words, when we don't know how to describe or explain the feelings that we have inside of us, we ask God, and we ask ourselves to dig deep to find within us the words that elude us at this time. So often, I think in the midst of this crisis, we are without the ability to describe because we have never experienced before what we are going through. And yet somewhere deep inside of us, there are the words, the yearning of prayer, of expression, of trying to make sense of it all. Viktor Frankl taught that if you can find meaning, you can endure anything. And we try to find, as we struggle, to find the meaning in all of this. Perhaps some of it is that it returns us or points us for the first time in our lives inward to our inner strength, to our families, to our spirituality and ourselves. As we join in Adonai Sefatai and then privately in our own silent prayers, I hope we can find the words to express the yearning in our heart, the prayers within our souls. We'll continue Adonai Sefatai Tiftach.
Ananana sfatai tiftach. Ananana ufi tehilatecha. Ananana ananana sfatai tiftach. Ananana ufi tehilatecha. Ananana Adonai. Ananana sfatai tiftach. Ananana ufi tehilatecha. Ananana Adonai. Ananana sfatai tiftach. Ananana ufi tehilatecha. Ananana sfatai tiftach. Ananana ufi tehilatecha.
We'll take a moment for our own silent prayer, and then we'll join back together in just a bit.
יהי לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגורלי. יהי לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגורלי. עושה שלום ומרומם, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל תבל
We come now in our service to the Misha Berach, prayers for healing, as we thank God for the blessing of healing and of our doctors and our nurses. It's never been more important than it has at this time. We ask God's blessing of healing on Nancy Gillick, Kirk Kissinger, Sylvia Polsky, Alan Kay, Maureen Newman, Florence Baton, Leonard Gold, Carol Gold, Neil Tapley, Molly Steiner, Ellen Barbary, Bella Sherman, Michael Cavell, and Yana Timko. And as odd as it may seem, if you have names to share, if you would call them out even in the midst of your own living room now, to add them to our prayers for healing, as we add also the names of all of those who have suffered from this virus, that they might find healing and renewal and restoration, and the doctors and nurses and first responders and caregivers that are looking after them, that they might have healing and strength as well. We'll join in the Misha Berach, a prayer for healing.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleima, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
I want to share just some brief announcements with you tonight as well. As you hopefully saw in the email that we sent out, which I'm guessing you saw if you're seeing us here, we have put together a whole list of opportunities to connect in this virtual space. We're offering classes on almost a daily basis, and opportunities for prayer and spirituality on a similar cycle as well. Please check the Temple Shalom website at templeshalom.ca to find a full list of ways that you can connect with our congregation. And we want to connect with you. We are in the process of calling every single family in our congregation. We decided to start with those in our elderly cohort, 70 and older, to make sure that they, the most vulnerable, are looked after and cared for. We're calling with simple questions, asking how we can help, if they have what they need, and what we can do to make sure that they are supported during this time. And we'll work our way through the list and also to the most vulnerable. But don't wait for us to call you. Please call us, call the temple, email the temple. If you need anything, we're here for you because you're here for us, and that's what a community does. We'll get through this together. I know that we will, because we'll do it together. Shabbat Shalom. I go to bed every night, and I wake each morning with the same thoughts. Thoughts only of the virus, of the pandemic, of exponential numbers, of my family sleeping peacefully in our home, and an unseen threat looming like the angel of death on surfaces. Did I touch my eyes, my nose, my mouth? Did I wash my hands enough? Did they, my children? I go to bed and I wake with worry. Worry about my family in California. Last December, we celebrated my parents' 80th birthdays. My in-laws came from Los Angeles. We were all gathered together in San Francisco. It seemed at the time like such a milestone, 80 years old. And now that That's an extra worry. A demographic cohort that is far too statistically significant in this pandemic. And I worry for you, my congregation, my community. You're on my mind constantly. I don't know if I will ever be able to fully describe to you how much joy and meaning I find in our congregation when we are all together for Shabbat. This past year, as our numbers grew beyond all expectations, our Shabbos community and our school community grew as well. Weekends are hard for rabbis, I'll tell you that. For everyone else, it's a day of rest, but for us, your Clay Kodesh, it's a time of intense work. But it started to feel less and less like work as we would sit together and linger over a Shabbat lunch after services or kibbutz with parents during religious school. Truthfully, there are many days that I didn't want to leave the shul, and now we can't even go in. My children, believe it or not, my children fight over who gets to go to shul with their daddy. Never in my life did I imagine that I would have children that would rather be at synagogue than home watching cartoons or Netflix. But it has been true almost every weekend. They want to see their friends, some generations older than they are, and sit with you in the sanctuary and act like judges on a cooking show as they evaluate the oneg dessert. We have lost so much in these just few days of social distancing and isolation. I guess I miss a lot of things, but right now, as we gather virtually for this surreal Shabbat via video conferencing, I miss most of all us being together. I miss that more than anything right now. They call what we are doing right now social distancing. We can add this to that long list of examples of one of those delightful and often poignant turns of a phrase the English language has called an oxymoron. The bringing together of two seemingly incompatible and opposite terms like sweet sorrow and recorded live and act naturally, good grief, passive aggressive, and though it's not kosher, still illustrative, jumbo shrimp. I've always enjoyed how language can construct through the use of this literary device biting commentary on the incongruity of frequently paired things. But it is that commentary, that moments of silence that hovers over a room when we contemplate the meaning of an oxymoron, when we dwell on the underlying message of social distancing, that such a term is so powerful. The oxymoron challenges us to see compatibility, even harmony, in seemingly incompatible things. And so now, and for the foreseeable future, human beings, the most social animals in the universe, must stay away from each other so that we can one day, God willing, all be together again. How can we be together when we are so physically far apart? One answer, I guess, is this: it's this technology. To quote my teacher, Rabbi Jeff Salkin, and as I mentioned earlier in our service, Judaism is now in the cloud, which, let the record note, is a biblical euphemism for God and holiness. But is this where I want it to be? Is this where I think Judaism belongs? No, not in the slightest. I think of Judaism as the anti-tech of our day, the response to all of our connectedness, our plugging in. The Sabbath is the great moderator of screen time. It carries more weight and authority than any parent could ever muster in the face of a child who wants to play a video game. But, and here is the brutal truth of the thing, here it is, if we are not here online in this virtual connection, if we do not make this work till we can return to our sacred places, our communal tables, classrooms, and gatherings, we will lose too much, and we may never come back from it. Judaism dies in isolation. Our community needs community. It's not a Jewish thing to go off into the woods by yourself or to find God in solitary moments on a mountaintop all alone. Yes, God dwells there too, but God dwells more between us than in any one of us. Martin Buber taught us this. In his transformative lens on relationships, on I, thou, Buber explained that God is not an I or an thou. God is in the hyphen between you and me, between I and thou. God is the bridge. When we act to help each other, we make God present. As many have said, social distancing does not mean social isolation. We can be apart, but we need not, dare not be alone. Melissa Raphael is an author. She wrote a powerful book called The Female Face of God in Auschwitz. In it, she says that what died in the Shoah was not the masculine presence of God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we understand the term, the heroic, manly God, superhero God, that would always be there to save you, to save us. That's what died in Auschwitz. But what remained was the Shekhinah, the motherly presence of God. That's what survived. That's the vision of God that provided comfort and became present in acts of help, of helping each other. God did not rescue Judaism and the Jewish people from the Shoah, though we prayed that God would. People rescued people. Where was God in Auschwitz? God was in the acts of kindness, of chesed, of compassion, that in spite of everything and all attempts to destroy our humanity, still remained. How do you survive the unimaginable? How do you survive a global pandemic? I have very little idea, but I know it's not with toilet paper. Maybe, as it was then, maybe it's with chesed, with kindness and compassion and tzedakah. The Talmud declares, tzedakah titzalei memavet. Tzedakah saves from death. Why? Because of the hyphen. Because the dash between me and you is godliness. Chesed, tzedakah, gets us out of ourselves, out of our own worries, and gets us into giving to others. I pray every day and every night for a miracle cure. I do, and I imagine with great dreams that an Israeli scientist will discover the cure, and then not only will the world be saved from this pandemic, but Israel will get the credit, and for once our people will be accepted and appreciated. Both are grand dreams, I know, and yet somehow the first, finding a cure, seems more plausible than the second. I'll grant you that. But I think that gives us some measure of hope. But until humanity finds a cure, what will save us from loneliness, from despair and fear? It's each other. It's acts of chesed, of kindness, that we are seeing all across our country every single day. The people that are shopping for their elderly neighbors, those that are donating medical supplies to frontline healthcare workers, and they are desperately needed. If you have gloves or masks or those kinds of healthcare devices and supplies in your home or in your dentist office, please donate them. It's our neighborhoods. In our neighborhood, families have put paper hearts on their doors or on their fence posts so that the neighborhood kids could go on sidewalk solitary scavenger hunts to find these sweet totems of connection. We will save each other from this pandemic. A cure will be found. I have infinite faith in humanity and our collective resolve and ingenuity, and a cure for our worries, it already exists. It's each of us, doing and caring and looking after each other. And that means that the errands and the sharing of supplies, but it also means staying away from each other, gathering here online instead of in our community spaces, so that we can flatten the curve and one day again, hopefully soon, all be together again. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. It is all of our prayers. Amen. We continue with Aleinu, page 586. Again, it's odd, but please rise in your living rooms.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו פורים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים. Eloheinu einot, emet malkeinu efesulato, hakatu betorato, וידעת היום, והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינות. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו.
As we come to our Kaddish prayer, it is an opportunity to reflect on loved ones, to remember them for blessing, but first, a reading before Kaddish. It's hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in the company of with those we love. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one, and in affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, and in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. On this Shabbat, we recall those who died at this time in seasons past, whose families mourn their lossing now, those who died during this past week, and those who died during this past 30 days. As I read the name of your loved one, again, if you could rise in your own homes, we collectively across our community will join you in the Kaddish prayer. We recall the blessed memory Don DeVorts, Ann Erke, Noreen Gillitz, Frank Levy, Raymond Lieberman, Sandra Nayberg, and those for whom the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of your loss, is on this Shabbat. We read their names as well for blessing. Sarah Atnikov, Jack Barnett, John J. Berry, Jack Boko, Aaron David Chayovsky, Joan Chapnick, Max Chekik, Gertrude Chertico, Joseph Coblin, Elaine Nadler Costello, Margaret Davis, Benjamin Feldman, Harriet Finkel, Lila Flum, Bernard Geffen, Michael Gittemacher, Charles Gordon, Esther Gold, Gertrude Hoffman, Age Heimegger, Bernard Kaplan, Sam Kaplan, Lillian Cates, Marion Kemp, Ruth Kleinman, Rachel Comm, Lois Cohn, Shirley Court, Molly Crivel, Theodore Levitt, Sylvia Littner, Cyril Lukes, Henry Michaelberg, Meyer Miller, Toby Moyles, Milton Ozer, Francis Pearl, David Perlis, Isidore Prinsmetal, Ann Raisin, Arthur Rosenfeld, June Seelig, George Silverman, Max Singer, Tova Snyder, Aaron Spivak, Robert Steiner, Sarah Stern, Elka Tabakman, Edith Tapley, Sam Tenenbaum, Lois Zacher. And if you have names to recite for Kaddish, if you could please reshare them as well. We join together as we recall all those who died in defense of freedom and justice, victims of terror in this land, the land of Israel, around the world, as well as those who have died from this virus, 10,000 now more, and those who died in the Shoah. May their memories always be for a blessing. We'll join together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yit adar v'yit aleh v'yit alal shemei kudesha b'richu. Le'elamin kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damin ron be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael. V'yal kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort the bereaved among us, and we say together, Amen. It has been a difficult Shabbat, not a normal service. But in some ways, none of this is normal, and yet this provides a little bit of normalcy because the prayers haven't changed. The setting has, the medium has, but these words, which have been with us for generations, they are, I think, that constant that provides comfort in the midst of this tumult and storm. As I was preparing for the Shabbat, one of my colleagues gave me a poem that I wanted to share with you as we end this service. Al da'at hamakom v'al da'at hakachal, with the knowledge of the one who is in all places, and with the knowledge of this holy community. We declare with full voice and with full heart, we are in the in-between moments. We are in the in-between moment of being in our sacred spaces that are the descendants of the ancient Mishkan, and our private spaces, in which some of us dwell alone, and which some of us dwell with our closest others. This is temporary, this isolation we feel, and may God heal our isolation. May God hear the anguished voices of those who are truly alone and lonely. We commit ourselves anew that once we, through our wisdom, are able to lift the veil of fear, we will redeem ourselves from our solitude and rejoin each other in sacred community. A colleague gave me this poem, and I wanted to share it with you. Al da'at hamakom v'al da'at hakachal, with the knowledge of the one who is in all places, and with the knowledge of this holy community. We declare with full voice and with full heart that we are in the in-between moments. We are in the in-between moment of being in our sacred spaces, our spaces that are the descendants of the ancient Mishkan. And we are in the in-between moment of our private spaces, in which some of us dwell alone, in which some of us dwell with our closest others. This is temporary, this isolation we feel. And may God heal our isolation. May God hear the anguished voices of those who are truly alone and lonely. We commit ourselves anew, that once we, through our wisdom, are able to lift the veil of fear, that we will redeem ourselves from our solitude and rejoin each other in sacred community. That we will go from merely holding hearts to once again holding hands. That our embraces will journey back from the virtual to the real. Even as our prayers and songs go out into the cloud, let us resolve, in the words of Nehemiah, we shall not abandon this house of God. Our houses of God and Israel and Torah are still our houses, and they are still our homes. They are here to sustain us and inspire us, to give shape to our lives, to give depth to our hopes, to give us water to quench our anguish. We will return them to them, Nashuva. We will return, and we promise to continue to sustain them and to honor them for what they must continue to be. This is temporary. Od Yishama, yet again shall the voices of children and adults be heard in our sanctuaries. Nashuva, we will return. Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you again soon. It's been wonderful to be together even virtually. We join now in a song for peace, for shalom, not only for peace, but wholeness as well. We join together in our living rooms, in our dining rooms, and across the internet. Oseh Shalom.